Hello and welcome to the Ecom Sales Tax Podcast. My name is Ryan Johnson. I've got Dan Peisner and Jason Parr on with me today. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, Ryan.
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. So in the wake of this Wayfair Supreme Court decision, I think most states were quick to enact some sort of economic nexus laws. And with that, there came a lot of states, also were quick to roll out some programs or amnesty programs, as you might categorize them. And I was just wondering if you guys could just touch on those amnesty programs and what makes them different, whether or not to go with them. I thought that'd be a good topic for today.
Well, it's actually a great topic. Amnesty is a year old. I'm sorry, not Amnesty, but Wayfair is a year old. And the question is still the same. So Wayfair happened. So what's next? And we've talked a lot about that, trying to understand your nexus footprint and the taxability of what you sell. It's a consistent question that's asked, and it's a consistent issue that we face and we help clients resolve. Really trying to understand what to do next. And in that process, we often identify either a responsibility or even sometimes a liability or exposure. And when that happens, we're trying to identify the best programs, the best methods to try to mitigate any tax, penalty, and interest that comes out of our client's pocket. And so there's lots of different ways that we can do that and different recommendations that we made. One of those that is well known are voluntary disclosure programs that run across state to state. But occasionally a state, and especially now, will offer what they call an amnesty program. And I have to tell you, all amnesties are not the same. It's interesting to note sometimes what a state calls amnesty. I mean, when you hear the term amnesty, your initial thought is, oh, I'm going to be able to register and I don't have to pay any tax or penalty and interest. They'll just forgive what I didn't know or understand. And they really just want me to register going forward and do the right thing. And that's what you would hope an amnesty program is, but they do vary. And I won't say that they're disguised as an amnesty program, but it's not amnesty the way you might think it's amnesty. And so there's a couple of them out there that I'd like to chat about just briefly. We talked last week or the week before about California and its program, and I would just reiterate again, anybody that might be listening, that is a limited opportunity to get involved. A lot of times an amnesty program or a special program that a state passes will have a limited window of availability to participate, and then it won't be available anymore. And so we're within that 90-day window with California, and it's shrinking quickly. So if a California registration or sales affects you, we really want you to call and chat with us. But so we've talked a little bit about that and what's available in California. But recently you may have received a letter from Alabama on a simplified seller's use tax amnesty. The simplified seller's use is different than the regular sales and use tax that's imposed by the state of Alabama. It's specific to remote sellers and has specific guidelines associated with it. So I want Dan to tell us a little bit about the Alabama Simplified Seller's Use Tax Amnesty, which I question whether it's an amnesty, but you may or may not have to pay any tax or penalty or interest. And compare that to a new amnesty program that's being issued by Illinois, which has a very limited window, about 45 days, beginning here in a couple of months. And this will kind of highlight the difference between the program in California and its benefits, what Alabama is really offering or what they're really saying in this letter, and what Illinois is offering. And does it really provide you the benefit that you really need? Dan, if you could just share a little bit about those.
Almost certainly, Jason. So starting with Alabama, the letter states that under this new law passed that there's an amnesty for any taxes or any simplified seller's use that was uncollected simplified seller's use, I should add. So it's only uncollected taxes. There's an amnesty for any uncollected taxes prior to October of 2018. And this may sound great. It is a waiver of tax, penalty, and interest. However, if we go back, turn the hands of time back a little bit, we'll remember that the whole simplified seller's use program was passed prior to Wayfair. It was one of the original programs that was written to challenge, and Alabama kind of had wanted to be the ones to get to the Supreme Court. Just so happened that when Newegg and Wayfair took up that case, they took a slightly longer path, and South Dakota beat them there. Hence, they've got their name on the preeminent sales tax case in that area. So once that was done, Alabama said, okay, we know everybody was holding back on collecting anything. We're not going to start enforcing this till October of 2018. And so they did. We really feel that this law is kind of a cleanup. There's always this question of, well, technically the law says that there was this liability pre-October of 18. So that this law kind of just gives that the force of law, amnestying those periods out. So really, if you didn't start collecting till October 2018, it didn't really change anything for you. It just means that there's not even a chance of the department going back now, as long as you never collected that tax. And that's really what amnesty means in Alabama. It doesn't mean that if you're just getting on board that they're going to amnesty anything else so far. That's the main benefit is kind of putting to bed that early period. In contrast, California functions more like a voluntary disclosure, but for people that otherwise would not statutorily qualify for voluntary disclosure. You still have to pay the tax going back to a period in 2016, but they're going to waive the penalties, which is the same benefit you'd get in a voluntary disclosure, and it's roughly the same look back period. Again, it's just that the fact that they found everybody that would normally disqualify everybody from VDA, so it's a little bit of a twist. And the third program that was mentioned, Illinois, it's closer to what most states do with an amnesty. You see them pop up with in a lot of cases with great fanfare. You will see them pop up usually with some kind of an ad campaign, and they're very, very short-lived. They want to, the whole idea is to get as much buzz going as possible, get as many people amnestied as possible, and try to get as much money in all at once as possible. And usually it'll fall right around a fiscal year end or year beginning for a state, so they can kind of goose the books a little bit. In the case of Illinois, what the amnesty says is that they will waive penalty and interest for any periods that are applicable under amnesty thus far, which sounds great. Normally, the voluntary disclosure in Illinois will just waive penalty. Interest almost never gets waived. The catch is that based on what we've seen so far, the department still has to put out the rules on this. We have not seen anything that would limit the look back. And in the past, I don't think they have limited the look back on Illinois amnesties. So if you have had more than the usual 3 to 4 years of exposure, let's say that you've been doing business in Illinois for 7 years, you've had physical presence, state's never caught you. You were thinking about a voluntary disclosure, but all of a sudden amnesty comes up, you read about the law, you get a flyer, great. But if there's no limit look back period, you would be paying tax possibly out of your pocket for the last 7 years just to save on penalty and interest. Whereas instead, the better path for many taxpayers would be to instead use the voluntary disclosure program and only pay the 3 to 4 years worth of back tax, and then get the penalty waived. I assure you, the interest will pale in comparison to 3 extra years worth of tax out of your pocket.
Yeah, no doubt. So, we've talked about a lot of complexities. We've talked about states coming on with economic nexus thresholds. Some of those thresholds are different than other states. They have different effective dates. They have different programs. More and more states are coming online. I believe there's 31 states now that have some sort of legislation or future anticipation of passing marketplace facilitator tax laws. It's changing who's responsible. Then there's the question of, if I'm a marketplace seller, do I have a responsibility to register? Can I deregister? If I sell on multiple platforms, do they all manage the collection and payment the same? Or are they different? But what I'm trying to show here is that there's complexity in all of it. And even when it comes down to the recommendations of getting registered or participating in a voluntary disclosure program or participating in an amnesty program, which comes out quick, it has limited availability to participate. We just recommend, before you participate in any of these things, before you take steps, if you want to understand your nexus footprint, then we can help you with that. If you believe you know your nexus footprint and want to know how to proceed, we can help you do that. If you believe you know how you want to proceed, but not sure how to make the first steps, we can help you do that. When it comes to these programs, we would just say, talk to somebody that's fully aware of what the program offers. We would love to chat with you and discuss your situation related to each of these states, and really confirm whether one of these programs is the best step for you to take, or if there are other steps that can help mitigate or help you get compliant without tax out of your own pocket, especially with penalty and interest. So we make a plea to everybody to give us a call. We'd love to chat with you. Love to understand your situation and help you walk that path.
All right, well, thanks, Stan and Jason. I think that will clear up a lot of things for people. And if you do get a letter or you're concerned about what you should do next, you can find our contact information down below. And we hope to see you guys next week.
Take care.